Well, everyone, welcome today to our webinar. This is Mike Wright talking now. Also have Paul Harris on the line, as you can see, and Tony Lovelace. And Tony's going to kind of kick us off today.
Thanks, Mike. They let me do the lightweight stuff. I get to do the housekeeping items, just kind of quick recap how we're going to be running through today's session. So Mike and Paul and I, we came up with this about a year ago, really to address a need with our customers. Just as system admins come and go, there's a need for refresher training, getting them up to speed. The Issuetrak plane's in the air, but we want to, keep them comfortable so they are empowered to make changes to their sites. So it's a nice way to get new system admins brought up to speed. We can also use this just as a refresher or peaking for existing system admins. We hold these webinars the second Thursday of every month. We go from 1 to 3 Eastern time. They run for 2 hours. Now, we realize 2 hours is a big block of time, so come and go as you want. These are also recorded. They're put on Issuetrak.com, and I'm sure at some point we'll show you where that link is so you can see the videos. Mike and Paul are going to be doing the heavy lifting on the presentations. I'll be monitoring the chat channels. I think there's 2 different ones for a Q&A as well as a chat. So I'll read those. I'll either try and respond to them, or I'll bring it up for Mike and Paul to address. So the outline is the same every month. We do 60 minutes, really like 50, 55, and then we do a quick break, get a sip of water, and regroup. But we're going to go into a topic. This month's topic is complaint management. Then we go into a 30-minute deep dive. So we talk about some of the more technical, complex aspects of your Issuetrak. And then we do a 15-minute, I'm going to call it a commercial or a teaser, talking about new features that are added. This week we're talking about 2 new releases, one that was pushed last week and another feature release that's getting ready to be deployed. Then we open it up, 15 minutes Q&A. Last month we had Dan Flowers, our new CEO. He was actually in here for 15 minutes talking about the direction of the product. So there's yours truly. I'm the youngest person here in terms of longevity at Issuetrak. I've been here 8 years. I've done technical sales my whole life. Went to Virginia Tech and UNC. I'm a relationship person, so it's all about supporting you, empowering you, solving your problems, and then you make my job easier by recommending me to your other departments or other people that you interact with. There's Mr. Mike. He's the longest serving employee at Issuetrak. He's done everything from writing the software, supporting it. Now he's the person who opened professional services 10 or 12 years ago. And Mike and Paul, they're the product experts, if you will. They do all of the onboarding with our customers, and then the re-engagements where they want to expand usage, take their Issuetrak to the next level. And then we got Paul Harris here. Paul's local guy. He's worked out in industry many years, came on board. He's started at Issuetrak on the tech support side, fielding those phone calls, and then he moved to the dark side and started doing configurations. And Mike and Paul are my 2 closest friends at Issuetrak. When we were all in the office, I'm in their office every day saying, hey guys, how would we do this? Can you help me with this customer? So that's the quick overview. I'm going to turn this back to Mike, and he's going to bring us up to speed on complaint management.
All right, folks. Thank you for attending today. We really appreciate you being here. Let's see. I got to make sure I get my main session up. So today what we're going to do is complaint management. And we want to talk about a little bit about how Issuetrak is used to track complaints. And I'm going to start this off a little bit by kind of going this way here. will look at me again, and I say, okay. But you know, what is a complaint? Well, a complaint really is a perception of a problem. Now, it could be a problem that really exists, or it could be that the customer is just not happy. So either way, it is a complaint and something that needs to be addressed. So we have to follow through with that. It's really hard to make everyone happy all the time. No matter how good a job that you do with customers or with your products and services, it's hard to make everyone happy. Someone is going to have a problem with something sometime. It's just the way it is. And that's going to end up as a complaint too. So we'll go ahead and handle those. And then of course you do have an actual problem, and it could be with a product quality. It could be product quality. It could be a function that's going on of the product. It could be with people. Of course, how they acted, how they talked to you, what kind of attitude they took with you. I cannot tell you how many people I would like to put complaints on about attitude alone. Sometimes it's about facilities, cleanliness, the function. Did it work the way it was supposed to do? Was it being kept up? Does the maintenance look like it? Or does it look like it's like torn seats in a waiting room at a healthcare facility? You never know what you're going to run into in facility issues. And finally, just straight out service. Was it good? Was it bad? Were expectations met or exceeded? Were you actually getting everything you want? I apologize for that. Were you getting all of the you're getting everything that you needed out of what you expected from that particular customer? You know, like I said, we can't make everyone happy, but we're going to try to do that. So what we want is we have to kind of manage expectations. The expectation of the customer is to be heard. They really want to be heard. They want to see that you're listening, that you're engaged, and that if you can, receive a response, especially if it happens to be through email or if it happens to be through a phone call, to receive a response back to acknowledge that you have been heard and that someone was going to take some sort of action, or at least they were going to record what your particular problem is. That's an expectation that particular customer wants. Sometimes the expectations, if it's product related, is they may want to have something repaired or replaced. And it could be a physical product, it could be whatever it happens to be, but there are expectations that people want to have. And I apologize for these notifications. They're just flying off on me today. So that's some of the things that we do with Issuetrak is we're going to record these. And of course, if you're using like incoming email module or you're using some of the other options, we're going to send emails back. So we're going to have the people have responses, and we're going to know that that happened. Then let's kind of go down into why do we care? You know, there was an old adage when I first started in retail, and that's been 30, 40 years back now. And we used to managers used to tell me, and it says, you know, if someone receives great service, they're going to tell 10 of their neighbors and friends. And if they receive bad service, they're going to tell 100 of your neighbors and friends, because they're going to tell it about everybody. Well, we kind of need to update that, because the same is true. It's just now with cell phones and computers and all of the different ways people communicate, we're no longer looking at 10 and 100. Actually, what you can do here, of course, is you can go ahead and rate a person instantaneously. You can literally turn your back on someone, give them a 1-star, and send it out. And literally the entire world knows within a couple of seconds that you had a bad service experience at this particular place. Heck, Yelp, think about what happens. We go to these Yelp reviews, we read the reviews, we decide whether we're going to go to a restaurant based off of those reviews. Managers care about that. You should care about that. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a, I guess kind of a commercial. I've been watching this show called Upload on Amazon. And on Upload, it's really dead people being essentially uploaded into a virtual environment. And they have these things, these customer service reps call angels. And these angels are really there to help them with their every need. And it's virtual. Well, these angels, they work for customer response. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, they're all rated. literally what happens is a person who is in the virtual reality world lives there, they have the expectation of getting good service from this angel, and they swipe across the screen and they give them 1 to 5 stars. And they search for the 5 stars, because if you don't get a 4 rating, your job's gone. And actually, that's a lot of times right now, that is actually how things really work in the real world. We look for these confirmations that we did a good job, and a lot of times our jobs are on the line because of this. I thought it was a very good show that kind of reinforced this complaint management talk that we had today, because it was so ratings driven. You could tell it people's jobs, and that's what they cared about, was the ratings in there, and it was so instantaneous in that I thought it was a good one to watch, and a good one to actually bring up during this conversation. So let's get a little deeper. Management does care about complaints, because again, new sales or repeat sales could be affected. As Tony could tell you, nothing in the world makes him madder than our support team or our PS team or someone in the company, not handling a complaint properly, because it falls in his lap to talk to a customer to try to smooth and ruffle some ruffle feathers, and he doesn't like to do that. I've been in his job. I've been in that seat. I don't particularly care to have to do that, but it affects your ability to sell something new to either existing customer, or it can affect your reputation with new customers. So new sales and repeat sales could all be affected by not handling complaints properly. Regulatory issues could lead to legal fees or fines. We have a huge regulatory governmental industry. Essentially, it is an industry. It's there to protect the customer, to protect the public. It's there to do whatever job it's set up to be. And there's regulatory, both at the state and federal issues, that have to be addressed. And in some cases, especially when we get into the financial industries, we are really held to some really heavy fines if you don't follow the processes to handle complaints properly. So if you do run into that situation, then you can really have some heavy problems for a company because of regulatory complaints or fines that may come. And legal fees are a big part of that. If you do get into a situation like that, you're probably going to have a legal issue that you're going to have to address. And if you have to address it, it's going to cost legal fees, no matter how you go, either whether it's internal legal team or whether it happens to be an external legal team. So management cares about that. And of course, as we said, customers can tell anyone with a cell phone or a computer of your good or bad service in a second. So that's something that they care about. Reputation of a company means a lot. I cannot tell you how important our reputation was on this. I forgot to upload this, change the slide. I forgot to, when we first started out with Issuetrak, back a long time ago, back in the early 2000s, we developed a very good reputation because of the people and the companies that we dealt with. We dealt with some very high profile companies. We had very good product, very simple to use. Our product had a good reputation almost right out the gate, and we were able to build a company that way because we had a good reputation. We tried to give the best service that we could within our resources that we had at that time. So we did that. My management team, Hank Luring, the CEO, or former CEO of Issuetrak, and the other people who worked at Issuetrak all had that customer-centric focus. What we ended up doing with that is we started out essentially in this particular company as being a company that was delivering custom programming to customers. So we were so customer focused when we started moving into the product range, we wanted to make sure that we had good reputation, and that was what the management focused on. So if you're trying to do everything and trying to do it the right way, you can go out, you need to have some sort of way of tracking. And this is a tracking application. Of course, our name is Issuetrak. It is what we do. We track things. So customers that come to us, a lot of times what they're doing is they're use emails or Excel spreadsheets in order to track complaints. We get a lot of that, or even other systems that they're trying, and it just doesn't fit well for what they're doing. Well, systems can do things. So You have an tracking applications, and maybe you're just doing everything through email. All the emails come into a mailbox. The mailbox is then maybe shared with other people, or you have people that go through the mailbox. I've run into people who have thousands of emails in their mailboxes. I have people who have hundreds, if not thousands, of folders to track all of that. And what ends up happening is, if you're responding to them, you're responding back to the person who came in, who sent the complaint in, but you got to notify Jim, Bob, Sally, Brian, Eric, and everybody's brothers and sisters in the company that this occurred. So you get this email traffic that just blows everything up. And you go, oh my gosh, you know, it may be a simple problem, but I'm required because of my policy to notify everybody. So what happens? I get email traffic going everywhere within the company. There's no central location for that communication. Every time I go back and talk to that customer, I've almost got to include all of those people in those emails. It makes it very difficult to track those complaints that way. Spreadsheets can provide some help because it can give you a single point to go and find it, if you can find it on a drive, or if it happens to be a Google Drive up on a network somewhere or another. But it lacks the ability to provide historical data in a usable way. And it can have limited access. You've got to know where it is. And most of the times you're seeing the information that's the last post, not the history. So that can become problematic also. And sometimes they're even hard to read. So because of the information and how it's displayed in that spreadsheet, it can be difficult to read. So you can have problems with spreadsheets. And the other problem is, so many people today are working businesses out of spreadsheets. You become essentially in spreadsheet heck, because you've got nothing but spreadsheets all over the place that you're trying to update. Now, we've heard that from other customers too. The other part is demonstration to auditors or regulators that you are actually following procedure. Through each of these processes, it's difficult for you to go in and tell an auditor, I followed procedure, because you don't have anything to document behind it. You may not have everything that's documented, every step you took, every investigation you did, every response that you considered, every approval that you did if you're doing everything through email. You've almost got to build an email package to give to an auditor. And that's not a lot of fun, to go through all of your email history and to find everything having to do with this one particular email address, because they are auditing this particular response. Or it could be a legal issue, and you've been subpoenaed to provide that data. If you present, you've got to go and take time to pull all of that data together in order to get everything together to meet the needs of the auditor, or regulator, or the regulator, or a legal entity that's requesting that information. Also, can you add complaints from multiple sources without a manual intervention? For example, if you're doing a spreadsheet, you're not having customers log into the spreadsheet to enter their complaint. Someone has either got to receive an email or a phone call and then take that information and then put it on the spreadsheet. And then they've got to notify other people that that particular item exists. So with an application like Issuetrak, then you can receive from an email, you can have people log in, you can receive phone calls, and it's all entered into one place, and everybody is notified manually, notified by email that this particular new complaint has been registered. So you can automate your responses back to the complainee or to the people in the company who are responsible for that particular, responding to that particular complaint. So an application like Issuetrak then can help you keep everything in one place, so everyone who is having to do with the complaint or with complaints in general can view that information. So what do you gain? One place to respond, investigate, process, and respond to the complainant. One place to review actions and generate reports to management. One place to share and to work on a complaint together. And access to a complaint from the field, if necessary, from a mobile device or PC, anywhere within the world. With Issuetrak being a web-based product, then you can go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and access, and that goes for any product that you can do that with, putting it into an application. A lot of times, like an Excel spreadsheet, in an Excel spreadsheet, you can't always share it outside because it's not going to be available outside of your firewall. You can't access it. You've got to make a phone call. Hey, Margie, can you go ahead and check that particular item? And I need to go ahead and get an update for this customer. Can you provide me with an update? So, gives you access that you can gain. So, how is Issuetrak help? So what I'm going to do is kind of go through a couple of, not really detailed information, but really kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the areas that we have worked with in the past. Healthcare, I'm going to start with that. I've worked with customers in in-home care. They're taking care of patients in home and they've had complaints or they have problems that they need to register. Long-term care facilities. Of course, these days we're dealing with a lot of different things with in-home, with long-term care. Recording issues, facility issues themselves and equipment issues that are within, that are helping with patient care, or we may have even patient care issues, problems related to the actual care of the patient. Sometimes I have run into it where it actually is the patient themselves is the problem. In some cases, it's what has happened to the patient that's a problem. But we're recording all that information, studying it, and discerning what to do. Medication issues. Unfortunately, we deal with a lot of medications with customers. We get into situations where medical professionals are giving medications out. Mistakes can happen, and unfortunately, they have serious side effects that happen with that, but we can want to make sure that we record that, study it, and see what corrective actions that we can take with that. I had one I thought was really funny. I ran into one customer was putting complaints in there, and they started talking to me about some of the complaints they were running into just related to the relatives. You know, patients' relatives complain, their person's not being taken care of, or they're not happy with the facility, or the staff is not addressing their needs. So there are different problems that we need to live, whether true or perceived. Again, we still are going to be a problem. Transportation issues. With an aging society that we have, a lot of times we have transportation companies that come and pick people up in order to take them to their healthcare provider in order to get whatever service it is. And then of course, with all of this, we have government agencies that we have to report to, we have auditors we have to respond to, and we have managers we have to report to. So what happens is there's a lot of information in one place in a product like Issuetrak that can go ahead then and give you all of that information so you can respond to these people who need this report. Now I'm going to go through a little of this in a little while, but I want to go through a couple of these type of usage scenarios of who we've helped in the past. Quality control. Now, you think about a quality control, is it really a complaint or is it just QA? Well, it depends on where the quality control problem is coming from, and it depends on how it's addressed. I've dealt with quality control for manufacturing. We're talking about it right off the line. I've also talked about manufacturing from the quality side after the product has been produced and sold to the public. Then we have product defects. We have problems related to the packaging, delivery issues. So we have all of these different components of types of complaints that the public or even people along the supply chain could report back. It doesn't always necessarily have to be the public. For example, it could be a person reporting a complaint that is after the product has been shipped to a warehouse, and the warehouse received the product and they have a problem or a complaint. So you never know exactly where those complaints are going to be, and it's good to have a product like Issuetrak that can go ahead and help you delve into where the problems are so you can really focus on what to take care of. Quality effects. We have several customers in the food industry, and whether they happen to be a restaurant or whether they happen to be a major packager of a particular product brand, then they have problems with a product brand. They may have a problem with a container or a package or size of a product, or they may have a problem with even taste and smell of products, depending on what they're actually doing. Packaging comes into another way, whether the product arrived undamaged, whether the packaging was at stake. Those are all quality issues, and they're all complaints that customers are arriving with. And again, you kind of get the same thing here. You're reporting to government agencies, you're reporting to auditors, you're reporting to management, and you're trying to follow a process. Trying to follow the process is one of the powers of Issuetrak, using our task manager in order to make sure that all the steps that are related to the investigation have occurred. So that's one of the things I'll show you in a little while. And then I want to talk to you kind of one that has been really on our radar lately, education. We've been running into more and more education customers lately where they're having complaints that they're having to track. Transportation departments have been particularly a customer that has come to us with problems related to bus drivers, for example, or routing complaints. We're beginning to see more and more of that as more and more of the government agencies are being the government entities and regulators are asking the different school departments to track different complaints made about their drivers and their people who are creating these busing routes. There are some very serious incidents that have occurred, and that is forced this upon the school systems. And it's for good or for bad, but it is something that has come down. Many years back, we actually had a local school system, and they came to us and they were really dealing with bus routing complaints, and they were dealing with behavioral issues by both students and staff. And they wanted a way to track that, and we put installed a system in there to do that years ago. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of come back as being something that we felt is going to be needed in the future too. Custodial parental complaints. And I use the word custodial because it's not always mom and dad. It's whoever is in charge of that particular person. So they may be complaining about the way the student has been treated in a school, or it could be within the education system overall. And it could be anything from being transported to a school, to a band event. It could be related to going to a sporting event. You never know where the complaints are going to come in today. And in higher education, we've run into a couple of issues where EEOC was involved. We have a particularly large university that I was fortunate to visit, where they are actually the EEOC department within the Human Resources Department, where they are tracking what's called environmental complaints. And environmental complaints are not things that actually always happen within the environment of the university property. It's the environment that whole property exist within the whole city, for example. So you get into situations there where there may be discriminatory problems, or you get into bullying issues or something like that, that is reported back to university and has an effect upon the environment that is perceived by prospective students or others that are planning on possibly attending that university. So it's reputation again that comes back to play on that one. We're now also seeing remote learning being more and more coming to the fore for especially dealing with the COVID-19 virus. And we're beginning to see where remote learning is beginning to open up some other items in here. Infrastructure, just relating to delivery. Zoom meetings, for example. Using the Zoom component here, we're using it just like a particular student and their teacher would use it in order to teach, in order to provide information to you. A curriculum request, where you have differences and changes you would like to request about a particular curriculum, that also might be helpful for you. So it's a lot of different ways that we've actually helped within here. So let's see if I can go forward. Let's see. So we're talking about some of the features now that Issuetrak does use in all of these. So I'm going to talk a little bit about features, and then I'm going to go into the product a little bit and show you some of the features that you use. First thing, multiple ways to submit issues. Now, one of the things that Paul has been involved with over the last year or so has been web forms. We now have a capability of building a web form that is actually being configured for the use of the customer. For example, we have a school system that uses a web form in order to allow the public to submit a a problem to the transportation department. And that's hosted by Issuetrak, and it was built by Issuetrak, and it puts the issues directly into the system through our API. So it doesn't mean that you have to log in to submit an issue. You can submit it through the web form that exists out there, and allows anyone to really submit an issue. Incoming email, of course, we're allowing emails to create issues, problems, complaints, whatever it happens to be. Or you log in, and whether you're taking phone calls and submitting on behalf of a complainant, or whether you're allowing people who are users, and a lot of times it's in a main company, they're going to log in and they are going to report that issue directly into Issuetrak. You've got reporting options. So once that information is in there, you can go ahead and use our reporting options to get the information back out, to study it and to address it. User-defined fields to capture the data, so you can build the fields that you need in order to capture that data. Using workflows to provide your process so that you can make sure that you're keeping all the steps. Using your outbound email responses to both address problems and to respond to the complaints. And then even if you need to, there's a surveys component within Issuetrak. So if you wanted to send surveys out to people, you could even do that if you want to and receive the responses back in Issuetrak. So those are some of the features that we do have, and that's of course not even all of them. We're going to talk about some today when we talk about even the business rules today. But I thought I'd show you a couple of things just by going into the CS training site and just showing you a couple of custom screens in here that we've built for complaint management. So I'm going to go here, and I logged in as the wrong person. So I've got to go back out, log in as someone with a little bit more power. The accountant doesn't have enough power to do what I need to do, and log in as myself. And when I log in as myself, of course, I'm a system administrator in the account, and I wanted to go ahead and show you some of the issue types and some of the custom screens associated with it, so I can point out some of the fields that we use. For example, this is a customer service complaint form. In a customer complaint form, this is the submission page that you see. And you see we've used user-defined fields to capture the customer information, the contact name and address. We put in here, we've actually added in a screen text line in order to tell and instruct people of what they need to put into the subject line and even into the description so that we can get better information from them. So we're using those two features of the custom screen in order to make it work for us. Of course, we have our class and our type, our assigned to, priority, and then down here we get into the resolution information. So above here, we've gone ahead and we've added capabilities to record the complaint. Here at the bottom, then we start to look at, I want to report on the findings. So I want a large text field that can go ahead and allow me to put information that I found about this particular problem. Maybe there was a categorization of dispositions. I had one of these where it said, you know, turned over to legal, or referred to an internal policy, or just dropped because we couldn't make any findings in here. Did we provide a resolution? What was the resolution that we offered to the customer? And here, what corrective actions do we need to take in the future in order to address this? And so these would be the recommendations, and then down here, what actual corrective actions were taken. Now, I've run into certain situations where the corrective action was essentially to fire the person involved, and then the manager would say, well, maybe not, we'll put them on suspension. And so it's a difference between what was recommended versus what the corrective actions are. Now, in this particular case, of course, we do have the task manager also. So the task manager, of course, will put whatever process needs to be applied to this particular issue and make sure it works well for them. Another one here, I'll go ahead and bring this one up in here for health, safety, and regulatory. This one is a complaint also. So here we're looking again, same form almost. Again, large text fields, class and problem, priority, severity, assigned to, and the large text fields. It's just we don't have quite as many fields in here. We have a finding and a corrective actions recommended. We didn't need all the other forms, so we just removed some of the user-defined fields. I'll come down here even to health, safety, and regulatory issues. You'll see the same thing. the tasking, the findings, the disposition, the corrective actions. You're beginning to see a pattern in here. We're using some of the same features over and over again for handling different types of issues. I'm going to come down to the school transportation one. Again, we had a location, contact information, and here again, you've seen some of the same things. In this particular case, there may be a hearing involved, so we added a hearing date, findings, corrective actions, resolutions. And in here, we've got a feature called a related issue. In certain situations, they may be a complaint, and we'll talk about this one in a transportation issue. Historically, we may have a particular, and we'll say it happens to be an operator, and an operator has more than one problem that has been submitted at one time, or could have multiple problems over time, and we wanted to associate this issue with another issue. Well, all we have to do is use our associated items, and we can put in multiple issue numbers in here in order to show them being linked to another issue. And here we can see that the issue number that was actually, this issue number, say was number 5, was listed also on this issue and this issue, providing a two-way view of those particular issues. So it's a good new feature that's been added to Issuetrak in order to show some associations when you're dealing with some of these complaints. Not only the history by the person, but now a relationship between one issue and another. And it could be related to an asset as well as being related to a particular user himself. So a lot of different ways in here. Of course, if I go back up to home and I submit an issue, you'll see some of these, and I'm going to go down to one of these that's actually a complaint. And let's see, I'll just do this one. Teacher complaint. This is just recording a teacher complaint in the education department. Contact information, you see how the teacher complaint is a category because you have different complaint categories. Then you have your subject, your full description assigned to, and your process. So I build the quick picks in order to do it. So we do quick picks whenever we use it. And with some of the capabilities you have within the incoming email module now, especially for using things like your quick picks, you can go ahead and set up the incoming email module to always use a quick pick to submit the issue here. So that way, no matter what issue comes into the mailbox, it's always going to have an approval process or a review process that could be applied to it right at the submission point. You don't have to wait to get the issue and then start it out by having it reviewed. You can go ahead and start the process immediately. So it's one of the ways that you can use the particular features within Issuetrak in order to do this. Now I mentioned surveys also. One of the modules that we have available in Issuetrak is a surveys module. So if you wanted to go in and build a survey, then you could go ahead and use a survey as a customer satisfaction survey, for example. I'll go in here into the design area, and you could go in here and build essentially a customer survey. Speed to answer, knowledge of transfer, what would you like contacted? So you can build these surveys in here and share them with others just by making them an email. So if I go in here and I'll go back on this browser here, and I want to email this to someone, then I can just go ahead to the deploy option here and send it out by email right there. Or I can set it up as you close issues to email the submitter after the issue is closed and get a comment about either your service that you provided or about your incident that you needed additional information on. Just depends on what information you want, because these surveys are all customizable by you. They have a very robust set of features to allow you to build your own questions and receive information about them. And then, of course, with the product that you have here, you also have a robust way to do reports. You can go in and build your report writer and, of course, build reports based off of the different incidents that have and give you reports. Then you have your scheduled reports that you can use in order to email those reports to others on an automated basis. So it can work out really well with what you're trying to do and how you're trying to get up. So I've been talking for a while, and I wanted to see if y'all had any questions out here. So Tony, has anything come through on the questions before I get into the final 15 minutes here? Give my voice a little bit of a time to breathe.
No, I don't have any questions. I did want to talk about the leveraging the task manager on these complaints. When you were on the healthcare one, I remember one of the ones you helped me with setting up the workflow. So somebody is lodging that healthcare complaint, and you helped me with the task process. So making sure that, how do we handle this if the person who's reporting the complaint, is that the patient? And if they're not the patient, do we have patient consent to discuss this information with the family member, or
Right.
whoever's lodging that complaint? And then it's also the self-documenting. So if you incorporated that into the task manager for me, so the task was, hey, is this person the patient? If you go yes, it goes to the next step in the workflow. If you go no, then it's going to fire off that whole workflow. Somebody has to, do we have patient consent on file? And then they're having to attest to it, saying, yes, I'm putting my neck on the line. I'm saying, yes, we have patient consent on file. You know exactly who made that statement, that attestation, and when they made it.
Right.
So
and building out that entire workflow is Tony came to me and gave me a piece of paper, and we sat there and we went through all of the different iterations, because that one was fairly complex, if memory serves me correctly. And because of the different attestment statements that we had done in here, and an attestment essentially is a task that can be completed by someone, so that when it is completed, it is saying that I attest that this is true, and it's kind of like a legal statement is what it's doing. I attest that I review the information, and then I've seen that the information is valid, so that you're saying, hey, this is something that's almost like legally binding for me. That's what it does.
But it also gave you the visibility. So
Yes.
Anybody else now working on that issue or that complaint, they know, okay, we've already got HIPAA consent, or we have this consent on file. It's visually, it's right there. So
here, I'm going to flip over to another site and just to and see if I can find one of these that's actually got the complaint management in here, because it looks like that one didn't. Yeah, this one's got it. So what Tony is talking about is when we get into the complaint section down here at the bottom, this one actually has a people, product, or facility related task group added to it. So whenever I would say respond, say with people, this one would happen to be a people issue, then it adds the steps that I need to make sure that I am taking in order to handle that process. And what we do is we build this out according to whatever node that needs to be going into a workflow. A lot of times these are decision points, and you start out here with 3 decision points and you pick one path to go down. And when you go in here and look at how this is built, it's just adding in separate groups in order to make the calls. And now we've talked about tasks a lot of times in some of these sessions, but they are so powerful that we can come in here and add in additional steps just by selecting the task group based off the response. And it really makes this a powerful tool for us to use. And then because all of the information related to the response is all reportable, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick edit. And you can see in here that this one has been responded to. It is completed on day and by whom. What was the response to it? That's reportable information. And then if you happen to have a note or anything added to it, you could have a note section in here where you could put comments. I usually use those notes on the issues and make these notes more representative of what the task is. So you may have the note in here, please respond with any, for this is a people related process, whatever it happens to be. But that then gives you that power in order to go ahead and build out any type of process you want, even if it's just steps to a clerk, like notify the supervisor, interview with the employee was completed, and we did a contact report of the user. contacted the reporter of the incident is really what that one's all about. Does that make sense, Tony?
It makes sense to me, but I kind of eat, breathe, and sleep this more than most people should. I know later on you're talking about business rules and automation.
Right.
In my engagement with customers, not a lot, I'm amazed the number of people that do not use substatuses or don't leverage them. While you're here and the task manager, because nobody, I mean, not, I went to public schools, not nobody. People invariably, they don't want to have to hit edit and then update a substatus.
Right.
If that's the way you operate, they always forget to do it. But while we're here at the task manager, being able to put in some substatus automation by clicking a task is such a powerful feature. Could you kind of connect the dots for, and then feed into your next session,
Sure.
maybe with a teaser, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Well, it's one of the things we leverage when we're talking about business rules, and we're going to be the substatus, and the substatus really is kind of sits apart, but it's used in the business rules pretty heavily. One of the things people don't like to do is they don't really like to go in here and go to edit. If they can change a substatus, which kind of like moves the issue to the next step, then they can, if they can do it without doing anything but completing a task, it's a big win for them. And I've set up many times customers that would prefer just to do that. Now, let's think about a substatus. A substatus is a status within the open status. That's what it is. What I like to think about it is it's a life cycle event of an issue. An issue is opened, an issue is responded to, it's assigned, it's not assigned, it's waiting for customer information, whatever it happens to be. Then what happens is the issue kind of moves along. Well, you have to do something or edit the issue in order to manually change the substatuses. There are some events that I can change the substatus automatically with, and I'll get to that in the business rules section today. But for the most part, people change the substatus manually when they add notes or when they update the issue. So what we're doing is we're telling someone that this step is done, let's move to the next step. Well, what Tony is talking about is let's try to do that without having to do the edit step. So if I go in here to notify supervisor, then as long as I'm using a yes, no, or in a task, then what I can do then is I can change substatus based off response. So here I'll go to the substatus and I'll say responded. I'll go in here, say no, so I'll come down here and I say not approved, just for the heck of it. Don't know what it was. And then maybe responded here also. So what it means is if I want to change the substatus of this issue from assigned in process, I click yes, and then it changes to responded. So I don't even have to edit the issue. And this particular case is a submit, so let me put something in here. Let's see, I think that'll work. And I'll actually show you now how to back this task back out. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to click on the task and do an edit. And of course, I have edit capability as the system administrator, and I'm going to not complete the task. I'm going to back it back out. I'm going to hit save. And now it's still going to be in the same task, which is responded, in the same substatus, responded. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go no. And since I've done no, it's now not approved. So I didn't have to edit the issue at all. I just went ahead and changed it and moved this issue into the next step is really what I did. I do that sometimes, especially with vendors. You don't want a vendor to actually update the issue so much. You just want them to come in and say, hey, they've done what they needed to do. So we'll send them an email that a task has been assigned to them. They come back in, they go to issue view, they click on yes, they've done it. And then that means the substatus is now changed vendor assignment complete. It moves it into the next step. So it works really well to do that. It's not quite an automated process, but it's pretty close. It's pretty slick the way it works like that. So you can go ahead and move the issue to the next substatus without even bringing anything else open. So it works well.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you going into that. It's just we had the task manager up. It's such,
Sure.
the task manager is such a powerful feature, and then it has the ability to advance these complaints through the resolution process.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you have dashboard visibility from a substatus perspective. So management, whoever's your OBUDS person monitoring these, they have the 10,000-foot view
Mm-hmm.
of everything that's going on in your organization.
The other part that's nice is, remember, like I said, these pieces within this particular system is reportable. So one of the things that happens in here is like this one here. Task completed by is one of the reporting options that you have within the issues and tasks data set in the report writer. So if you wanted to look at all the tasks completed by someone, it's very easy to do, or either completed on. This is the completed on date and timestamp. So you're looking at that as a field that is reportable also. So pretty much everything you see in this list is going to be reportable in the system, including what the response type was. So I want to look at all yes responses for this particular type of task. I can do that. Or I just want to pull up all yes responses by this particular user. I can do that. So there's a lot of different ways of playing this particular information. Another thing that's probably not used very often in the particular task area is the reminders, and I think that comes into play a lot with when you're doing complaint management, is that reminders both on maybe required by dates or on task due dates could be used a little bit more. You have to set a date, but once you set the date and the calendar functionality has to be involved, be added, then you can add a reminder in here. For example, a lot of times what you're doing with complaint management is you have some mandates, usually within either your procedures or regulatory, that this particular type of complaint must be responded to within a certain amount of time. So if you do that, you can add a reminder in here, which sets up a reminder on your dashboard and can send you an email reminder also at the bottom here, who it's assigned to, that this particular task must be completed within a certain amount of time. And it has a lot of capabilities of notifications between days and weeks and years. And you can even set it up so it'll remind you daily if you want to. So that capability also is pretty powerful within the task manager, but it works really well for complaint management also. Okay.
Okay.
Well, Tony, we got about 7 minutes left. Was any other questions out there from the audience?
No, I've been responding to the rest of them directly. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute pause. Let you rest your vocal cords. Let Mike, or excuse me, Paul read his cue cards since he's on a script. No, I'm kidding. Paul does this in his sleep. But let's take a 5-minute break. Let everybody stretch their legs. Maybe grab a cup of coffee. We'll regroup at 2 o'clock, and then we're going to do the meat and potatoes. This was the fluff session. But then we're really going to dive into the business automation and then actually talk about the 2 new releases, one that was pushed and the other one that's on the resolution. So that one should be out, I think, next week as well. Yep. So let's go ahead and pause and regroup at 2 o'clock.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.